On after the 10 o'clock news, we're going to learn about the Christmas tree industry in Michigan. Tyler Cluck's going to be with us from McIntosh and Associates at 11 o'clock on Focus, Mindy McIntosh. But for this hour, I've invited a very good friend who's been on many times. He's written a book called Maximize Your Medicare. But today we're going to talk about health insurance from an overview perspective about all things health insurance. It's been in the news, and it will continue to be in the news. And we say good morning to J.O. Jay, good morning.
Good morning, Art. Thanks for having me.
Are you having any fun?
No, not that much fun. Not that much fun, to be candid with you.
I just, the news depends who you listen to, what you hear. Subsidies, no subsidies, affordable, not affordable. We're playing a word game with health insurance, and nobody seems to have the answers as to how to fix the health insurance costs and insurance and all of that stuff. So let's start with an overview.
Sure.
Back during the Obama years, they created the ACA, the affordable was the word, health insurance, also known as Obamacare. Was it affordable?
I would say that the Affordable Care Act, much like almost every financial topic, is misnamed, meaning that money is confusing, there's jargon, and most of that is a distraction or misnamed in some way. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, fundamentally changed the way that health insurance can be purchased by people simply because of one fact, which is the carriers cannot deny you based off your medical history for any reason.
So anybody in fourth stage cancer could sign up.
And even more prevalent, obesity, type 1 diabetic, high blood pressure, for example. All of those people, prior to the Affordable Care Act, can either be rejected or put into a high-risk pool, depending on the state. Otherwise, they would have to do with no insurance. That is the primary fact. And the reason I told you not very good is our environment is because it's easy to go to the 5th, 6th, 20th reason that something is not good. But the reality, the fact, is that the price of health insurance increased primarily due to what I just mentioned.
So, here we are X number of years later.
That's right.
What's changed?
The ingredients, meaning to healthcare delivery, doctor's visits, testing, hospitalization, labor costs of the people who support the healthcare delivery system, like nurses, for example, the costs are higher and reasonably rationally so. For example, you may know there's a work stoppage of nurses just south of this area who are on stopping work as a result of their work conditions. In other words, that all of the stakeholders involved here will have a rational reason from their perspective.
All right, let me take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a lot about this hour, talking to J.O., and we'll have more for you when we return.
Hi, I'm Ray at Begin.
Show talking about healthcare and the cost of healthcare and health insurance with J.O., who's written the book Maximize Your Medicare. But this is in some ways outside of Medicare. Jay also studies the healthcare industry, among other things. So we're talking about the cost of healthcare, health insurance. It's going to go up, but it's going to go up because the cost of healthcare is going up. Is that basically what you said?
That was going to happen anyway, meaning that the cost of the inputs is higher. As a result, the cost of health insurance is higher. The current debate
But
is
I've heard as
slightly
much
different.
as 30 or 40%.
The reason
premium?
for that, that's the second issue here. So I wanted to start today by setting the record straight about the fundamental reason, which is the cost of healthcare itself is higher. Therefore, the output, which is health insurance, would be higher. The cost of growing oranges is higher. The cost of Tropicana or Minute Maid will be higher. It is literally as simple as that. That said, the political crossfire right now is due to the fact that the price of health insurance is lower today because of a tax credit. And now you introduce the other elements of my work, which is financial planning, Alliance for Lifetime Income by LIMRA, etc. That the integration of these different topics has resulted in the fact a misunderstanding about the increases in health insurance, which are sudden. The reason is the tax credit is set to expire at the end of this year if nothing is done.
Right, and that credit covered how much? Depending on your tax bracket, or?
It absolutely depends on your tax bracket, meaning your household income and where you live. So when people have said online, for example, even the qualified, 20%, 30%, this is wildly too low, meaning that, for example, early retirees, if I wanted to name winners and losers here, that's our society now. We want to have binary outcomes. That the losers here are certainly the early retirees who now have to purchase their own health insurance.
And not eligible yet for Medicare.
Not eligible for Medicare, under the idea that they would be able to retire comfortably because health insurance was low. They will face well over $10,000 increase annually running. And if you live in a very expensive location, you can be over $30,000 more a year.
So we find ourselves now on the precipice of this disaster, which is what it would be, I think, because those early retirees, if they can't afford insurance, still going to get sick, still going to go to the hospital. And if they can't afford to pay the hospital bill, we do, the taxpayers,
There's
one
no
way or
question.
Another.
There's no question what you
Which
just said.
drives the price again.
Absolutely.
You know, so it just seems to me that we need to figure out how to fix the healthcare system so that it balances out for everyone. And that's a tall order.
That's a very difficult order, yes.
Very difficult. And I certainly don't have the answer. Do you go to a doctor and say, well, I'm sorry, you can't charge $100 anymore. You can only charge $50. Do you go to a hospital and say you can't charge $1,000? You can only charge $250. I mean, that's basically what insurance companies do to some degree anyway, isn't it? They negotiate their own rates, which if I, as a payer out of my pocket without insurance, went into the hospital, I'm going to pay that long dollar. Insurance companies have a different rate.
That's right, Art. And so there is tremendous amount of debate about how to solve healthcare delivery cost. And the issue here is just as you stated rightly, which is we can have this idea that an individual consumer may be able to get an MRI at a price point which is actually cheaper than the one you find on your insurance bill. That is true. The issue is that you're not only getting an MRI, you're getting an MRI and the test, and then the 3 other analyses, and then the hospitalization on top. So if the idea that an everyday person could go and shop for each of these elements on an a la carte basis and get the efficient price, and also if something really bad happened, that then they would avoid bankruptcy, I find that almost impossible from a common sense point of view.
So let me ask, just to get this out of the way. It's been a lot of talk about a government-run system. Everybody on the same thing. So instead of Medicare at 65, everybody would be on a Medicare-type program. Is that the answer?
If you had asked me this question 5 years ago,
And I probably did.
That's right. We've been together for over a decade now. Thank you so much. Which is, the answer would have been absolutely not. That said, the political landscape has changed a lot. For example, we now have a program which is a regressive tax on everyone, which is called tariffs. If this can be accepted into our society, into American society, that all of a sudden we get to just add a fixed extra percent cost to some imported good that we buy every day, if we can all accept this as a society,
We don't have any choice.
in which case the leap from where we are right now to the idea of some other extra tax in order to pay for this disaster layer of insurance for the entire population, I would say the window has cracked open. I didn't say wide open.
That's what I
said
wanted to hear.
cracked open.
Because at least, and again, I'm not an expert, but everything I've heard about other countries that have a unified insurance, one payer, the government, if you will, has not been good. They're either in financial trouble, big time, or the waits are horrendous to get in to see a doctor. I mean, there's all kinds of secondary issues. The only good thing about them seems to be the price point is a little lower. But then again, if you look at Canada, okay, yep, they have universal health insurance, but they also have a 15%. You go to Ontario to buy something, you're paying 15% tax. Part of that's Ontario provincial tax, part of that's federal tax, and that pays for the insurance. One way or another, you're going to pay for it.
And this is a very important, great point by you, Art, which is that we see a lot of statements online or in papers or et cetera saying this country has this, that country has that. But again, like I stated earlier, right from the beginning here this morning, which is that's part of the cost of growing the orange, meaning that tax. The issue here is that tax is under the umbrella of the responsibility of legislative office, which means Congress, which means that the persons who are voting in the tax will have to be elected. So it is two leaps. One, which is, do we accept the notion of a national tax? And then the question is the person going to be actually electable to get into that seat in order to vote for the national tax?
I would doubt it right now anyway.
And
If
that's the
all
issue.
if that's all they run on, I would doubt it.
And that's the issue, which is that all I'm saying earlier a few moments ago was 5 years ago, I would have called that the no-fly zone. That said, it's different today, slightly.
Yeah.
And the reason is we have tariffs, which is de facto the same thing.
Yeah, here's my conflict with all of this. I am a proponent of capitalism. I am a proponent of competition.
Right.
But at 82, I have Medicare
Right.
and I have Medigap.
Sure.
I have no out-of-pocket cost other than to pay for that Medigap policy, which goes up with my age. But I knew that going in.
Yes.
And as much as I hate to say it, because I'm not a fan of universal health coverage, my Medicare plan with my Medigap plan is twice as good at half the cost of what my private insurance was
Far less than half the cost. Art.
before I turned 65.
No question.
And I'm going, okay,
No question.
I mean, I have never had a problem. The only problem you will face once in a while, if you have to find a new doctor, not all doctors are accepting new Medicare patients because they set a limit on how many they'll serve, and if they've met that limit, you're not going to get in. But many doctors accept Medicare as your basis, and many good doctors. And I say this with knowledge because I had to find a new one 6 months ago. And the first one I went to was capped off. They were not taking new Medicare patients. Worked out well for me because the second one was much better than, and I'm quite pleased. But it's, while I still don't totally favor a unified payment system, government-run healthcare, I have to admit that Medicare functions.
There's no doubt that Medicare functions well for the beneficiaries. I have no doubt about that. I've dedicated many, many editions of a book to this central message, and that it is a centralized, stabilizing fact for over 70 million now to their financial and retirement plans, that it is a cornerstone. I will stick by that. That's my hill. I'll die on it, no problem.
So what's happening in the Advantage plan segment? Because some of those plans are disappearing. There are carriers backing out. What's going on there?
Well, as we have spoken in the past, and I'd like to get back to the Affordable Care Act, but
yeah,
just briefly on Medicare Advantage, including in the local listening area as well as nationwide, the sellers are also under notable pressure. And this goes to talk about all of the negativity, and I understand that in the individual case, but certain facts of common sense have just disappeared from our national discourse. And I just simply put it to the people this way, which is, if you believed that the Medicare Advantage carriers were getting free money across the board, why is the number of plans lower?
Well, that's a question. I mean, and the other thing that has always bugged me a little bit is all the advertising is on zero cost. Doesn't cost you a penny out of your pocket. Listen, folks, there's no free lunch. You're paying for it through your tax dollars. One way or another, you're paying for it.
There's no question that you're paying for that portion. It is that what it is addressing is the fact that something like 20 million people in the United States live on Social Security as their only location of earnings under retirement.
Yep.
For them, every extra dollar represents groceries.
Absolutely. I understand the reason for it.
Sure.
But we were also taught, and we've talked about this, the reason that the carriers could sell you a zero premium plan is because the government was reimbursing them for their costs. When carriers start abandoning the ship, that tells me that they weren't, they're profit institutions. Let's start there. Tells me they weren't getting enough to justify what they were doing. Is that not right?
So we're back to what I stated right at the beginning, which is the cost of the oranges.
The input.
Correct.
Right.
Is higher.
Right.
So as a result, it pushed off the balance on certain Medicare Advantage plans. It's pushing off the balance in the Affordable Care Act. In Georgia, Aetna has left the Affordable Care Act in full.
Yeah, all right. Let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we're going to go back to the Affordable Care Act and talk more about it with J.O., and we will return. All right, we're back with you talking to J.O. He wrote the book, Maximize Your Medicare. We're talking about health insurance and the Affordable Care Act and the lack of subsidies right now. So let me ask you, as an observer of all of this, do you think the subsidies are going to return? Do you think that they'll come up with a number?
In the absence of a crystal ball, my thought is the answer is yes, if I had to choose.
Yeah,
if I were
mine
forced
too.
to choose.
Yeah, mine too.
And the simple reason is the number of Congress people who constituents rely on these tax credits is too great. That's the end. In my newsletter, just one to give you an idea, I make up a fictitious company. So it's a Substack, so it's jo.substack.com. I call this fictitious company Jay's Rib Shack, meaning that if you take away these subsidies, that's also taking money that people would use to eat at Jay's Rib Shack, which means every local business, not only the national businesses, but the local businesses in every location in the country declines.
Well, and something else is going to happen. You're either going to raise the price of your ribs, or you're going to give me less ribs for the same price.
Which I've already done. I've already done this, right, as a result of the fact that the cost of inputs is higher.
Yeah.
So as a result, Jay's Rib Shack will struggle.
Yeah.
That is inevitable.
Yeah. You provide insurance to your employees? I just had to ask. So let's look at different scenarios,
Sure.
okay? Let's start with the scenario that says, okay, government is going to return the subsidies maybe for another year, 2 years, whatever the length is.
Sure.
What does that do for us today if the subsidies return? And then, if the subsidies don't return, other than Jay's Rib Shack, what does that mean for the nation?
In the short run, if it returns, it buys time. Now, the candid reality is, it buys an extra year. Let's just say it's extended for a year. We've had 15 years.
Yeah, so next year we're back to the same place.
So you get an extra year. But nevertheless, in the very short run, that will be assistance to those people who would lose their advanced premium tax credit. I would also say that for my own professional work, that gives those people, the early retirees we discussed, it gives them an extra year to get their ducks in order, in a row, so that they don't face this going forward. This is the topic of a research note I wrote for the Alliance for Lifetime Income. In the longer run, if they do not, if they do not, then like I said, the immediate impact will be dramatic.
Yeah.
It will be dramatic, which is the loss of disposable income will be high, or people will cancel their health insurance.
And I'll bet the second is probably more prevalent than the first.
I would probably, if all else equal, that is my guess.
Yep.
Yes, that people will accept the risk and do without health insurance.
Try and save for it, which isn't easy.
No, self-insuring works in the very short run for Mr. Perfect. It does not work for Miss Sick-a-Lot.
But the reality is, maybe, let's say they put the subsidies back for a year.
Mm-hmm.
1 year from today, we're going to be sitting here telling the same story. And they will have done nothing to have brought down the cost of the inputs, healthcare.
So,
yes?
Let me just say that I found that the very complicated thing here is amongst all the crossfire, you can see one point of view of an elected official that you just do not like.
Well, there are a few of those.
The fact, and you can say that from every angle.
Yeah.
It does not matter what your politics or philosophy would be. The issue, though, is that they are also making certain statements which are correct. For example, some people, like you just said, that self-insuring is, complicated. I would agree with that. That said, it would correct the idea that Mr. Perfect, Art Lewis, when he was 30 years old, had to buy insurance, right? Shouldn't be paying $1,000 for platinum. He's Mr. Perfect. His likelihood of facing catastrophic health care costs is so low. Why is he overpaying?
Yeah, except when they look how old I am, they say, "Oh, you're 82."
Not
right in line.
I'm talking about 30-year-old Mr.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah,
30-year-old Art Lewis, who was Mr. Perfect at the time.
Yeah,
that what ends up happening is, since people do not correctly understand the function of insurance, as a result, they're complaining about the price of the Tropicana or Minute Maid without understanding that their likelihood of using it is so low that they should not be overpaying.
And let me throw this out. I have to take a break.
Sure.
I have said many, many times, to me, the big mistake in healthcare was made decades and decades ago when we were taught somebody else pays the bill. Doesn't come out of my pocket. My employer gives me insurance, somebody else pays the bill.
Right.
And we were disconnected from the actual costs of healthcare.
And in addition, I would completely agree with that. And as a result of that, you're also disconnected from getting the knowledge to understand.
Yeah, I'll agree.
There's oranges and the carton of orange juice.
All right, we got to take a break, come back. We're talking to J.O., and we will return with more. Let me talk just for a minute about Quick Lane Freeland on the McDonald Ford property. Quick Lane Freeland is where you go for your tires because they sell all tires at just $5 over cost. But now you're scratching your head going, well, do I really need tires? I mean, I've got tires on my car, but they're all weather tires. Well, there is a difference between winter tires and regular tires. And I've asked John from Quick Lane Freeland to explain it.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures. Unlike harder all-season tires, which stiffen and lose traction in the cold, this flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thanks, John. Stop in today, have your tires checked at Quick Lane Freeland on the McDonald Ford property. Also have them check your cooling system because, winter's here, folks. Just look outside. While you're there, you might take a look at all the new Ford products at McDonald Ford and their pre-owned lot where they have vehicles for all price ranges. Stop in today, Quick Lane Freeland and McDonald Ford, two names designed to help you with all your automotive needs.
We're proud to make...
Not eject doctors from the entirety. They are the point guard, the quarterback here at every level.
Yep.
Whether that be on the ground in the office, whether that be higher up in decision making, whether that be in administration. We need a doctor there.
All right, but if you offer free medical school, great idea. Do you then have the authority to tell the doctor, well, instead of charging $150 for your visit, you can only charge $100?
You will, because they are accepting Medicare and Medicaid rates, period. That for that period
Across the board.
Correct.
Okay.
That would be my provision. And somebody would ask, how are you going to fund it? My answer is, medical schools, you're eating it. And if you do not, we will then make the rest of your funding for your entire school depend